The lens I'm reviewing is the TTArtisan 35mm 0.95. Now this isn't quite a complete review. This is more like early thoughts and my basic recommendations about the lens. I will have some photo samples in the video so you get an idea of the stuff I shot with it, but I haven't owned it for a really long time, but I've owned it long enough to know where it would fit with my set of gear and how I think it might be useful for other photographers. So this is the lens, the TTArtisan 35mm 0.95. Much like a lot of their lenses, they make this available for other crop sensor systems as well as the Fujifilm system. It retails for about $199. You can get it on Amazon or directly through TTArtisan themselves. It has a nice, solid, hefty feel to it, but not too heavy. Obviously, it's definitely heavier than like the 35 1.4, but it's not too heavy. It has 7 glass elements in 5 groups. The aperture range, obviously on the widest open range, is 0.95. And then it has half-stop clicks all the way down to f/16. It has 10 aperture blades, and the closest focus distance is 0.35 meters. A lot of people talk about these lenses as if you should always shoot them wide open. You buy a lens for 0.95, you should shoot it at 0.95. I never buy a lens, even a fast lens, to only shoot it at 1 aperture or even mostly shoot it at 1 aperture. I want a lens that I can explore the entire aperture range of. I want some versatile lenses. I don't want a collection of lenses where I only have this lens for 0.95 and this is for my f2 lens or whatnot. I like lenses that perform well all the way around. And I would say this is a solid performer from 0.95 all the way through the aperture range. Obviously at 0.95, as you might expect from many of these lenses like this, there is some softness to it. It's not going to be the sharpest lens you've ever seen at 0.95, but it has a really, really cool look to it. You can get some really interesting bokeh, some interesting out of focus areas, as you'll see in some of the samples. But you can get a pretty cool, decently sharp image at that aperture depending on your distance and depending on the subject. It has a solid focus peaking, which is always nice, especially when you have a fast lens like this. But I've had some manual focus lenses where, for whatever reason, it's me or the camera I'm trying it on or the situation, but the focus peaking just didn't give me the feedback I needed to grab focus quickly. And this one's pretty solid. I didn't have too much of an issue out on the street trying to grab some fairly quick shots. The focus peaking did pretty well for me. One of the biggest positives for me is everything to do with the aperture and the aperture range. So the 0.95 is the obvious benefit of this lens, that wide open aperture. Having that capability is really nice because one compromise that we give up choosing a crop sensor system is achieving that shallow depth of field in a relatively easy way. So having a 0.95 lens gives us crop sensor users that really, really shallow depth of field that oftentimes we look for in certain situations. So that part of the aperture range is obviously super cool and beneficial. But the thing I really love is that it has the half stops all the way up the aperture range. And unlike some of the other TTArtisan lenses, it does not skip any of the main apertures. So it goes 0.95 to 1.4 to 2 to 2.8, 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, and 16. So it goes all through. You have the whole range available to you. You have half stops in that whole range available to you. So because of that, and because of the overall performance in that range, this is one of the best overall manual focus lenses I've tried for the Fujifilm system. because of those reasons I listed. The wide open aperture, the complete aperture range that you're given to choose from, and that the image quality that you get throughout the range, it's solid. I don't think it's going to be the best in class at any one specific area, but if you need a lens that is decent in price, that can give you a wide range of shooting scenarios from wide open to closed down, this is a great choice for that reason. I haven't really talked about focusing, but the focus throw and the focusing is really smooth. So that is super nice. This goes along with build quality and design, but what I love is that the measurement scale, the focus distance scale, the numbers are actually notched in there. So that's usually a good indicator of a quality lens when it's not just painted on the surface, but when they're actually notched into the lens. It's really nice. Also, I love how they made the scale for the feet measurement and the scale for the meter, the metric measurement in different colors. So in feet it's red and in meters it's white. So that's really nice. I like those little attention to details that go into some of these lenses. I always say that my biggest endorsement of a lens, especially a lens like this, is whether I could see myself keeping it for the long term, whether I could see myself using it on a regular basis. And yes, I've only had this for a few months, but I could definitely see this having a permanent spot in my collection of gear, and I could see a lens that lives on my camera for quite some time. I love the 50mm equivalent focal length, so this to me seems like it could be my main choice for manual focusing, a manual focusing 50mm-ish range lens. Prior to this one, the 35 1.4 from TTArtisan was my favorite manual focus 35mm or 50 equivalent manual focus lens. But I could see this one replacing that. And I can recommend it to anybody who loves that focal length range, the 50mm equivalent, and that doesn't mind manual focusing. This is a fantastic choice. At $200, it's more expensive than some of the other budget lenses, but it's completely worth it at that price for the aperture range that you're getting, to have clicks on an aperture ring, to have the build quality that it does, and the consistent image quality that it provides throughout the aperture range. Sometimes with some of these budget lenses or vintage lenses, we accept some flaws, and some flaws are a little more annoying. Like some softness I think is acceptable, and softness sometimes provides a vintage feel that we like. I rarely find a situation where I choose to have color fringing, or color fringing is something I enjoy. So it's nice to me when I don't have to bother or worry about fighting color fringing, and I don't see a lot of obvious color fringing in this lens. It's probably there, but it's not something that's popped out at me as something that's really annoying. So that's a good sign for me. The photo samples in this video are just some of the selects I chose from a few days of me experimenting with the lens, just walking around shooting. I don't shoot charts. I don't shoot, I don't have any comparison between this and other lenses in this video, but I think you get an idea of the capabilities of this lens through the photo samples. So here are some photo samples, and I will wrap up this video after that. Okay, real quick, there's not really any specific negative that I can point out on this lens. One, personal preference. This is being really nitpicky. This is a completely personal preference. I do wish, and this goes for pretty much almost all TTArtisan lenses, I do wish they all, or at least this one specifically, I wish it had a focusing ring that had this feel to it, the feel that the TTArtisan 25mm has. This is the cheapest lens, ironically, but to me it has the best feeling focusing ring. This just feels super comfortable, and I could use it all day without bothering my hands. It's smooth, easy to turn. Yeah, it may not look the coolest, it may not have the most vintage design, but it's the most useful and most comfortable to use. I would trade this vintage cool styling for usability on a lens like this, where this could live on my camera and it could be there for a long time and I'm going to be using it a lot. That kind of ring on the 25 is just more comfortable to use. So like I said, that's personal preference. It's not really a knock on this lens. That's just if I'm designing my perfect TTArtisan lens, it's meshing these two lenses together and getting this focusing ring on this lens. Repeating a couple things that I said before, I can recommend this to anybody using a crop sensor system that likes the 50mm equivalent, that wants a solid aperture range and wants a lens that performs really well in many situations. And obviously, that wants super shallow depth of field when you need it, when you want it. This lens delivers at that. You can sit there and shoot at f4, f5.6 and get super sharp, nice images, and then when you need it, open up 0.95, and then you have that razor thin, shallow depth of field. So I think that's really it. I'm trying to keep these videos a little short sometimes. They go really long oftentimes. So bottom line is I can definitely recommend this one to anybody. I'll have affiliate links in the description below. You know how affiliate links work. Anything you buy through the link, I get a portion of, but buy it wherever is best for you in the area that you live in. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate every one of you. Let me know if you have this lens or if you're going to try this lens. I'd like to hear some feedback on how these lenses will work out for everyone. So that's it, guys. I'll talk to you again soon.